Hey guys, thanks again for joining us for Lit Literature. This is your host, JP, aka The Demon. Just wanted to give you a quick forward again, as I will for every one of these introductory episodes. Again, episodes 1 through 8 focused on Book 1 of the Stormlight Archive, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, are really experimental. We're still developing our format for the podcast, and we just wanted to let you know that. They're still fun to listen to, and if you want to develop with us on this ride, or want a review of the first 2 books, feel free to chime in. Book 1, episodes 1 through 8. Book 2, I believe episodes 9 through 12. We're still recording those as we speak, so that 12 has an asterisk by it. But again, feel free to check those out if you want to come along on that ride. If not, feel free to jump forward to Book 3 episodes. And we're back. This is the Shoutouts, and we're doing Lit Literature again, as we do, it's seeming every Sunday.
Woo!
Woo! Today, we are going to talk about part 2 of The Way of Kings, part of the Stormlight Archive book, and there's a lot of damn information for us to get through. Last week, we talked through part 1. Mainly, we got through about... half of that seemed to be the prelude and the interlude, and then the other half was about the introduction of Kaladin and Shallan. But now we've got some more characters and we've got some more goodies. Just before we start, we did talk into a little bit of part 2, and I just wanted to clarify and remind everyone of our Brett bets. So at the end of part 1, we have 5 ongoing Brett bets. Bet 1. Heralds make agreement in the hell or outside of the hell. That's Brett versus all of us.
Who's Brett? Who are those bets named after?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I should
we introduce everyone?
remind everyone who's still around. Thanks,
Intros.
Brett. So, intros.
Long story short, me.
Yeah. Those Brett bets are named after Brett, a.k.a. the director. Brett Williams. You got anything to add, Brett?
Nope.
Good.
I'm Brett, the director.
I thought you said you had nothing to add.
Just
That technically didn't add anything.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. I'm Jeff, JP, the Demon. Over here we've got...
Cherry, or Josh Armstrong. Cherry.
All right.
Ben, the Hitman.
Got the Hitman on here.
Andrew, the captain, fresh from the belly of a chasm fiend.
Yes. Spit him out. Didn't like him. All right.
And
like
one more is going to be joining us, hopefully soon. Eam the Dream.
Yeah, he'll interrupt us rudely, I'm sure, as he always does. And so...
Oh, so rudely.
Oh, so rudely. So anyway, Brett bet number 1. Brett, the director. We named these bets after him because it was kind of, his thing. Oh, look at this. Just in time. We have Eam the Dream, the most rudely late arriver. Even later than I arrive at everything.
Pull up a seat, you churl.
All right, we'll get him connected into the audio. Freaking churl. All right. So Brett bet 1 was heralds make agreement in the hell or outside of the hell. That's where their power comes from. Brett bet 2, is time in this book linear or cyclical? And that's in a pure sense. Number 3, is Zeth bound to the stone morally or magically? We might be able to... Oh, no, that's going to be next time.
Yeah.
Number 4, Shallan. Does Yesna know about Shallan's family, father, death, etc., more than Shallan believes? Brett bet 5, are the Clear Lake people who are searching for that particular person heralds? I would like to point out that Josh, Andrew, and Brett said yes. Jeff, Manny, and Bed said no. Half and half.
Well, I have a feeling I'm going to be changing that soon because I've got some new theories with new information now.
Nice.
So we're going to talk through that, and we'll actually get into that right now. So we talked a little bit into this part last week, but now we're going to talk, just kind of quickly refresh through the interludes of part 2. So we had 3 of them, right? And it seems like this is kind of interesting. Sanderson's using interludes, and I think it's kind of a way to let people see peripheral events in this world while still keeping the focus of the story generally on these characters, right? Because we just briefly, between each part, we get a few little tidbits. These ones were Shallan's brothers, Ishik, the Pure Light guy. We'll talk to him first. And then I believe we had another Zeth.
We did.
Interlude. So, Ishik.
This is at the beginning of 2.
Beginning of 2, Manny.
You're good. You're good.
Josh whispered it. Like our mic's not going to capture that hint. So, Ishik, he goes to meet 3 strangers who are asking him to basically go around the Pure Lake looking for this particular guy. That's what our Brett bet is about, right? Mm-hmm. Then we've got Nan-Balat, who's Shallan's brother, and he likes to torture animals. But apparently him and Shallan are the only ones who escaped the messed upness of their family. He might be forgetting about the fact that he tortures animals, but... and then we had a Zeth a Zeth chapter, where Zeth basically gets taken over. He's been, since his assassination, he's been going hand to hand, and he gets taken by a thug group. Anything to add, or should we move forward?
I think we're ready to move forward with the new content.
I think we're ready to move on. We covered that
plenty
pretty
to
good
cover.
last week, I feel.
Yeah.
Good. So that means we're getting into our first new characters, Adolin
Yes.
and Dalinar.
Awesome.
Pretty awesome. Dalinar being the brother of the king who was assassinated by Zeth in the prologue, and his son Adolin. I'll just kick this off. Let's just start going. I mean, we could talk all the way through Dalinar and Adolin. We could talk through... I mean, in these first few chapters, we basically get pummeled with high society Alethi culture is kind of the way that I view it. Mm-hmm. Clearly a warrior culture. They're out on a hunt.
Right.
Adolin's younger brother, he has a blood sickness. He can't do any martial training, and because of that, he's kind of
Viewed as
ostracized,
weak.
Viewed as weak.
The Alethi culture does not take kindly to that kind of a disposition.
And it's funny because they even kind of discussed like, there are other honorable trades that you can get into, but it's almost like a backhanded type like thing when they comment on it, be like, you could be a cleric or something. Like that's obviously not as honorable as being a warrior, which is something he can't do.
Right.
They say the highest calling is a soldier.
Or soldier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the highest calling. And they have these things, callings, where they devote themselves to like a single thing. Dalinar's is leadership, and Adolin, his sons, is somehow dueling.
Right.
Anyone who insults me, I'll immediately duel you.
Right.
That's my calling, to be easily insulted.
Dueling and women.
Dueling
courtship. And I think the last time we talked about the Alethi culture, we're kind of going into great detail about how they're more of a warlike race than a lot of the other races. And the whole fact that you can have a calling, which is just dueling, is definitely speaks volumes about that kind of a culture. I think it's really neat that you can defend yourself politically and other members of your family just by accepting duels. It doesn't seem like they're to the death either. They're just, it seems like
defeat.
Sometimes they are, sometimes you can surrender.
Sometimes they're for items like Shardblades,
Right.
or most of the time I think they're probably more for honor. And it sounds like they even have a ranking system, or almost kind of like what we would consider like a sporting event where you can go higher up and then they have a champion, and it seems like
it's even funny because in this first chapter, it starts in Adolin's perspective, kind of, and Sadeas is there, and he's just insulting his father, Dalinar. You're good, Manny. Manny's got to get his lit going, his lit literature going by getting a glass of wine there. No, but Sadeas is kind of insulting Dalinar, and he immediately, in his mindset, he wants to challenge Sadeas. I'm going to challenge him to a duel. His father kind of eases him back. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Dalinar definitely seems to be, I don't know, in his old age or as he learns new information or gets perspective, kind of trying to de-escalate situations rather than constantly fighting for honor and constantly causing more divide between certain factions or people.
Exactly, and it definitely seems to be at odds with the entire Alethi culture, saying, if you're a man, you should fight it out. Whereas he's trying to constantly be like, we're going to take the high road. We don't need to stoop to their level, which is almost a very un-Alethi type of thing to do.
Well, it's funny, too, because in his youth, Adolin even comments in his perspective, he wishes his dad was like he used to be.
Right.
The Blackthorn, angry, crazy warrior, and now he's so much calmer.
I definitely think that's a cool point to talk about too, is what caused that change. And really you kind of get the first like almost hints of that when you look back to the prologue, and the people who save or that you hear about Dalinar is one of the drunk people who was passed out drunk while the king was murdered.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this all like a trying to redeem himself for being drunk and asleep at the wheel essentially while the king was murdered? Now he feels he constantly has to be vigilant and has to like step up.
There was even a comment where him and Sadeas are talking, Dalinar and Sadeas, and Dalinar kind of blames Sadeas in a way, and Sadeas blames him in a way.
Right.
And it's important to point out that Sadeas, as scummy as he seems, was the guy who pretended to be the king and ran out when Zeth was going to kill him.
Unarmed.
He was the decoy, unarmed.
Yeah.
And also, it's important to note that I would, if I was Sadeas, I would have more blame on Dalinar for being passed out drunk.
Yeah.
And his brother even said, "Follow the codes tonight, Dalinar. Like,
Yeah.
don't drink. I feel some nasty stuff coming."
You kind of can't talk about Dalinar without mentioning Sadeas, because they're two halves to the same whole. They both seem to have the same allegiance to King Elhokar. They're both obviously older than the king, and they both apparently have the same level of responsibility that they really want to protect the king, but both of them go about it in completely different ways. Sadeas seems to be more playing to the courts and gaining a lot of political power, whereas Dalinar is kind of more relying on his reputation as a great warrior. But like you said, he's becoming more and more wise and more not a pacifist, but just trying to unite people rather than severing them apart.
Yeah.
So
Because I have to remember that Dalinar, Sadeas, and the king who was killed were all like best friends almost.
Yeah.
And they were always together, and then the king's death split them, but they still feel responsibility towards the new king.
The son.
And they both want him to live, but they, like Andrew said, to go about different ways. And it's driving the wedge farther between them.
It's like when the hunt goes down, they both have this moment where, Dalinar's going to save Elhokar, and then Sadeas is just drilling the thing with massive armor. Like you need his super bow. He needs that shard bow. Yeah, and they have that moment on the battlefield where even though you could tell they kind of hate each other now, they're aligned in that way.
Let me ask you guys, after reading these chapters, is there a little part of you that thinks that it's possible that the reason the treaty happened was to try and get Dalinar drunk during the party? Because he's the only, they might have thought that he was the greatest chance to be able to stop the assassination.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think that the treaty had some motivation behind it. I think even towards the end, we start to get a little bit of, towards the end of this part, which we'll get to, but we start to get a little information about maybe these Parshendi might be they might have a little bit more information or want more things from the Alethi than we think.
Yeah,
The first thing
more
they
up their
do when they
sleeve.
learn the language is they ask to see Alethi maps. First thing. Second of all, there were certain instances they were demonstrating more knowledge than they were forecasting to the Alethi. So, I don't know. There's certainly some undertones there.
And they
feel
learned the
like-
language suspiciously quick.
Yeah,
3 days.
Exactly. Right.
3 days it took
3
them to
days
learn
they
language.
started communicating with each other.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I think I agree. I think that they're a lot more intellectual than the Alethi think that they are. So I think the treaty was more so like a way for them to get close to the king without having to do much.
Right. Yeah, I could see it go either ways. Certainly, the fact that they chose to do it that night, it really eliminated all of the potential shard bearer guardians that the Alethi had. So, in essence, they didn't have to deal with Blackthorn, didn't have to deal with a lot of the other lordlings who had the shard. They only had to deal with
The king.
the king himself.
He was really the only threat that they
Right.
went up against almost the entire night. Well, at least that Seth did.
Right.
It's definitely
It's kind of interesting because I think right now we're probably going to talk down this path. We'll talk a little bit of Dalinar and Adolin for a while.
Sure.
We'll leave Kaladin on the wayside for a bit, but it's important to note that we're kind of regionally focused right now.
We are.
Everyone
Excellent.
we're learning about is on the Shattered Plains at this point. Shallan, we have a little break from in this part. We don't hear a lot from her. Minus her drawing abilities in the,
right.
the last chapter later on.
At one point, I do want
Which
to
I
talk.
have to say, when I saw that connection, I just thought that was so cool. Like, as soon as the
Yeah.
pen started drawing and they were, like, commenting about how good it is, I was just like, yeah. Way to go, Shallan.
Yep.
So basically, Dalinar, Adolin, and Sadeas save the king. We are introduced to Dalinar, Renarin.
Renarin?
Renarin.
How do you guys read it? I don't know.
Renarin. I think.
Renarin.
I say
that's it.
Renarin as well.
Yeah.
We're also introduced to Sadeas, some of the court Wit. We meet Wit, who's
Love him.
kind of
I love it.
awesome. Yeah, Wit's pretty awesome.
And then King Elhokar himself, we should definitely talk about at one point.
Yeah,
specifically.
well, I mean, right there, we basically during the hunt, the chasmfiend and basically ambushes the hunting party. They're not prepared for it. Elhokar almost dies. Dalinar saves him with insane abilities. He's better at using Shardplate than any person around is basically what they state right through Adolin's
Yeah, they
perspective.
commented as he was going towards the king when the chasm fiend was about to go, crush him, basically. I remember them describing it as being very elegant or very smooth, even for somebody in shard plate.
Yeah.
Like, it was like next level abilities.
Right.
It wasn't because of the shard plate.
a lot of people were in
only.
awe when he
Yeah.
charged up and saved the king.
And Adolin's like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's the Blackthorn. Holy crap.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even when he has the dream in the storms and he's fighting,
Yeah.
and he with the what are those
Fire
called?
poker?
The radiance.
Yeah.
Even they were impressed that he was fighting as well as he was for even just a regular.
And actually, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Let's loop to that because that's, I think, the next thing. Let's just real quick before we go there, comment on before we move forward on Elhokar's paranoia. So the king,
Which is like so
Elhokar,
crazy.
is super paranoid, and so at the end of this, this failed hunt, which I guess they succeeded, but at high risk, right? I think Adolin and Dalinar lose several guys that they feel. You could tell that they, as generals, kind of feel about their own men. They don't just like to lose men. Unlike Sadeas, clearly, and some of the other guys. But the king is convinced that somebody sabotaged his saddle because it was cut. And they even prove it was cut. But whether it was cut by its own,
just the
wear and
pinching of
tear.
the actual belt buckle, or was it cut by a physical knife? Like
But
some
I think something
nefarious
that's
reason.
important to note is that the king sees things.
He does.
By himself at night, he sees things specifically. And that was pretty interesting. The other thing before we moved on from the hunt is the one thing that I took that I wondered about, which I never caught before, was that the eyes of the chasm beast are green until it's dead. And when it's dead, they turn dark. They turn black.
Yeah, completely
essentially.
dark. Yeah.
So, not
So
like
it's a light eyes.
I wonder if it has something to do with the heart, the gem heart, which is infused with
Stormlight.
So I
Or
just
it
something
could
I
just
noticed.
be foreshadowing that all light-eyed people are terrible human beings.
As Kaladin would have you believe.
Yeah. Except it's really
Point one
interesting.
TDH.
Yeah, totally. I will say that it's really interesting because you come from reading Kaladin's perspective, and it seems like these light eyes are all assholes. But then you read from Dalinar and even Adolin, who's kind of pompous and angry, but he's actually pretty good. He's
Yeah.
a pretty good human being.
I mean,
Solid.
Dalinar that we're seeing
Is
now is
definitely-
different than the person
yeah.
that he was.
Right.
Because even he admits when he was younger,
Yeah.
he was a warmonger. And
Right.
just,
Like, he was just
He had-
crazy.
But I think
no
he was probably a
compassion.
lot like Adolin is now.
I think even worse.
Yeah.
Even worse.
I
Interesting.
think people were even like, some people were even just like scared of him.
I actually have a Brett
Tyrannical.
proposal for you guys. Josh and I cannot partake in this, but
Oh my god. I'm so sick of these.
Per usual.
do you guys think, because in Dalinar's fit during the storm, his dream, he asks the voice a question at the end.
He does.
Should I trust Sadeas? Because his son would have you believe that he shouldn't. He freaking hates Sadeas. Dalinar has
I'm not
kind
too
of
sure I quite like him either.
understanding. I think nobody likes him, but the question is,
I like him.
Dalinar is asking, should he trust him? It's important to note that Kaladin is in a bridge crew that supports Sadeas' army. And Sadeas' attitude towards bridge crew is clearly made evident.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
But
He's more towards the ends justify the means.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
where Dalinar is constantly saying that it's like whatever the leader does, he has to have 100% like the same, or he has to have the same commitment as all the soldiers that he's leading. So whereas Dalinar is very much like, I'm not going to take weak or take like cheap means to get to the end, because that whole journey is what really matters.
Yeah.
Like the way to get there
Yeah.
is what is important, not just that you succeed at the end. So I think that's definitely a very big contention point between the two.
And that's kind of the
Sorry.
difference as to how people think he's straying away from the Alethi way. Because they would be just like, no, let's fight and win.
Yeah, but you
as
know-
opposed to
it's crazy, though, because even the king, they always talk about how Dalinar's becoming like the king was before he got assassinated.
yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
Kavalar.
So, I agree. Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And even one of the things like right now, Elhokar actually encourages, he likes the structure that they're in now because he thinks that it breeds stronger princes when they're competing against each other. So kind of having that constant like threat and that constant clashing of wills against each other is going to make everyone stronger in the end.
Right. Do you guys want to talk a little bit more?
Oh, wait,
about
do we
Elhokar
finish
right
the
now?
Brett bet that Jeff was
Oh
proposing?
yeah, let's finish the Brett bet first.
Yes.
We kind
So
of
yeah, so what was it again?
So the Brett bet that I have is for you
That one
guys.
was going to be right in the middle of the camera.
right in Andrew's way.
Sorry, guys, on the speaker. We had to refill our goblets of wine for literature. So the Brett bet that I have is: do you guys think that Sadeas is going to maintain allegiance or break allegiance?
I'm gonna go with maintain. I think the voice is kind of foreshadowing. I think that right now, with the way things are going, we're kind of led to believe that he's kind of has a hidden agenda, that he's gonna betray Dalinar, but I don't think that he is.
Okay.
It's too much of an obvious suspect.
All right, got Manny down for maintains.
Ben, you want to go next or should I?
Sure, I'll go. I also think he maintains, as long as Dalinar doesn't stray too far from the Lethe way. Because right now I think he is. And he has to realize that he can't change the entire race of people's beliefs and expect them to do it.
In like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the competitions, the infighting, it's who they are.
I think he realized that when he was trying to convince the king to retreat. And he realized, what am I saying? These
Yeah.
guys aren't going to retreat. He seems like a coward.
You think he did that? Then I think he backpedaled a little bit more in the later chapters. I think he needs to, like, forgo some of his beliefs so he can be more in line with the mainstream.
And push him the right way.
Yeah.
All right. So, Ben,
But-
I'm going to have you down as maintains
Yeah.
allegiance for now. Dross?
I think I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that he's going to break it. Sadeas, I know that in the visions that Dalinar receives, it keeps telling him to trust Sadeas. But just some of the developments that we've seen with Sadeas in the last couple of chapters have been very, very troubling. He kind of worked with Elhokar behind Dalinar's back without including him in this scheme at all to have
High Prince of
Sadeas
Information.
exactly
Yeah.
elected as High Prince of Information. That gives him direct jurisdiction to potentially really find some damning evidence against Dalinar and really, really discredit all of everything that he's done. And I think that that's just such a big weakness that would be hard for anyone to not take advantage of. I think that maybe Sadeas might still be loyal to the king, but whether or not he's loyal to Dalinar is up in the air. Because Sadeas might literally think that Dalinar is just too weak, and he might take any tactic he can to destroy him. So I'm thinking that Sadeas is very much going to remain an antagonist for quite some time, and I don't think that Dalinar should trust him.
We're gonna wait a minute for Josh. We'll go to Brett.
Well, Josh can't partake in it anyways.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Sorry. Wasn't thinking, guys.
So
Oh, that's fine.
I kind of have really mixed feelings about it because
Yeah.
I have a theory that I kind of told you a little bit, Jeff. And my theory in that, depending on which of the two ways I think it might play out, even though it can play out many ways, would determine how I feel about this as well. So I really don't know what to say. I feel like it's just kind of like a roll of the dice because my views on this theory are muddling my thoughts. So,
Pick one.
I'm gonna say
He's got to pick.
he does not stay loyal.
All right.
Nice. 2 on 2.
2 on 2.
Nice, Brett.
All right.
And I think that there's a chance he may not even stay loyal to the king.
Ooh. All right.
Double or nothing.
So we're going maintain, break, and we'll leave it at that. And
Cool.
I think that'll get us right into talking about Elhokar. So
Yeah.
Josh, go ahead and take the
I'd
lead.
like to just
Well,
touch...
do you think I feel like right now, do you think that now is a good time to say my theory since we're kind of right on the point where in Dalinar's story that we're talking about it?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, I kind of have a little bit of a possible theory, even though it's a bit of a long shot. I'm starting to think that maybe Dalinar, the Way of Kings, the book that he's reading, I'm starting to think that maybe the old king, Galavar? What's his name?
Galavar.
That he was also reading it, and maybe that somehow, obviously, could be the link to the visions. So I think Galavar was possibly also having visions, leading him to information, and maybe that's why he had pre-knowledge of the assassination that he was expecting to take place on his life. That somehow this voice in the visions is giving them information. Now, I'm not completely sure that this voice is friend or foe. That's where I'm kind of like a little muddy on my theory. I don't know if the voice in the visions is helping them or hurting them. So I also think the voice in the visions is the herald or the whatever that got left behind. Oh. I think it's that guy feeding information, and possibly he's trying to help. If he's trying to help, I think unite them actually means unite the heralds, not his clans, not his Alethi people. I think he's supposed to go out on a journey to find the people around the world and unite them like Josh thought the people from the fishing village were doing. If it's foe, then I think unite them means I want you to I want every Alethi to stop having faith in you so that you have less pull. So I'm going to give you terrible information, and I think that he could possibly be working with Sadeas.
So it sounds, Brett, that's pretty awesome. It sounds like you have kind of a multi-tiered Brett bet going here. The first one is, is the voice in the dreams the herald that's left behind? That's what I captured. Josh and I cannot participate in this. So we have to leave that to you guys. So we'll go real quick. Brett, you're first. You said yes, it is. That's your theory.
Well, don't you think that we should discuss this before we bet? Like, just so people have different perspective as to what the bet is.
Only if you're a coward, Manny.
What?
Even Brett's like, oh, this is a theory. I don't know if I'm betting for this.
Well, like, no.
Yeah,
like,
it
what is
was
that
my theory, and I don't know which way I'm going to bet.
Discuss it. No, I'm
thought.
totally just playing with you guys. Totally discuss it. I agree. Josh and I will have to kind of remain
a couple of
silent
things
a
to
little, though.
consider with that is if it is not a friend, then why is it showing him the past?
Why is it shown in the past?
Like, because I mean, learning from the past, you're gaining knowledge, which essentially is great.
Is he
Yeah.
showing him a true past, though?
But I think he would show him a true path and then give him bad advice.
Yeah.
Because it's like, trust me,
Yeah.
this is how it is. Like, you can see, and then
Or even he could
totally doesn't
be
get suspected.
evil and trying to pressure them and say like, this is why this is all doomed to fail, or this is why everything is like, you shouldn't. I don't know, like it's all hopeless type of thing. Because what if he is someone who is like lived through this all in the past, and every time it failed, and he knows that the heralds abandoned them, or there's something that happened like that, and he's like, I'll show you the past, and this is why we should just.
Well, the herald, you know, these guys, they think the heralds. What they know is heralds betrayed them. That's what they know. The heralds betrayed them. But clearly, in Dalinar's vision, the heralds are defenders of people. Mm-hmm. So whether that's real or not.
Well,
maybe
and I
they're
don't even
both
know if
real.
it's the heralds, the
It's
radiance.
the radiance.
Oh, that's
They don't know if it's
I
the
apologize. I
heralds.
apologize.
Yeah.
I said that wrong. That's my fault. I did mean the radiance. The heralds are not in the vision. The radiance were. So that's a good question.
What's really interesting too
Now, was
about
it?
that
It was
is-
the heralds in the very first chapter.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
The heralds were in the
Prelude or-
prelude.
Yeah. Okay.
The interesting part about that too is also that one of the radiants was a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like totally different than the Alethi way, or even majority of the world, I guess.
Because that's seen as like
Masculine.
masculine.
Yeah. Kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially considering that the Alethi have women eat certain foods, men eat certain foods.
Women get
do
the
certain
sweet
things.
foods, but men get spicy.
Men do certain. It's like super
Men
divided.
destroy while women build.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. During that whole,
That part I don't disagree with.
even by today's standards,
Yeah.
in that whole vision that Dalinar had, the view of the Radiance was overwhelmingly like Valkyrie mythology.
Yes.
I'm
Very much so.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys agreed. That was overwhelmingly at the front of my
I mean,
mind.
the
when
only
was
thing that
reading
I think they would be missing is almost if they had like wings sprouting when they come to land and just like.
Right.
Well, they could fly in their helms. Dalinar was always confused about their helms. They would just like disappear. They
Yeah,
wouldn't have
they
a
wouldn't
helm on,
even-
and then they
yeah.
would have a helm on.
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, why does she not have a helm on? Now she has a helm on. Like, what is going on here?
Props to Dalinar for fending off monsters with a fireplace poker, by the way. That was pretty awesome.
That was actually something that made me realize how badass Dalinar really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Like, he goes into a dream, and the first thing that he does is he's immediately like logically analyzing everything like a warrior. You know, who's this?
Yeah.
Okay, what's this? Where am I? There's a monster. Like, let's save this person. And even though it's a dream, he tried to save these people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Something
interesting.
that's really cool to think about, and Jeff, don't turn this into a Brett bet. But what I think is really cool is because I don't know if this would ever really get answered, but it's like maybe even almost a matter of opinion. But do you guys think or maybe it's going to feed into one of our other bets? Do you guys think that when he goes back and he does stuff, is that changing the future? Is he actually going back, or is this just a
vision?
A vision. Because like
vision.
one of the things even the woman, she's like, "You're not like my husband."
Yeah.
The things that he kills in saving her, does that affect the future, or was this just like a play type thing that he's going back and he's seeing these visions specifically just for himself, or did he go back and those things he did, is that going to affect the future?
It was pretty crazy. He's like,
Yeah.
Go, where's the water? Take me there. And she's like, what do you mean? You don't know where it is? Like, we go there all the time.
Yeah.
I hit my head, woman.
And even then, when the hero or the Radiants come down and she's like, if you want to train with us, like, you should come and train with us, or even saving the little child's life and the woman, like, they probably would have been dead without him being there.
Yeah.
Is that going to come up later? Are we going to see in the future where it's like, my family lineage goes back to this, or like, this guy was just an ordinary farmer and just happened to ended up becoming one of the Radiants or something, and you're going to be like, oh, there's a connection there. Maybe he did go and then all of a sudden train with the Radiants afterwards. Or
That's a good question.
Yeah. Right. That is.
I don't think that like that farmer would become the lineage and he would go train, because I think
he himself probably wasn't skillful.
Exactly. But I do think that I don't think necessarily that what he's doing is taking an effect on current events, because the visions take him to people that are not really significant, or to my knowledge, that are not really significant. It's
Don't
kind of
seem
like
significant.
a country. It's like an
Yet.
off, like little town or whatever, like little village, and he's taking the role of a farmer, and it's a family of 3 people, and they just have like a random attack, and not even like the real Voidbringers, just like a shadow.
The offshoots, they call them the
whatever.
shadows, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what we should do real quick is, if we don't want to make this one a Brett bet, we don't necessarily have to. But we could just maybe discuss it and come back to it later.
Sure.
But I think we kind of got through the dream. I mean, obviously, we know that when a high storm comes through, Dalinar has a fit. And this fit is when he goes into the dream world. Unfortunately, this particular fit happens not only in front of Adolin, but in one of his own war camps. In one
No,
of
it
his
happens
own
in front
men's
of
barracks.
It's
Renarin.
it's one of the other High King's
It's-
war
it's-
camps.
No, it's all his walk.
I thought it was his barracks, his war camp
definitely
barracks.
his.
Oh, he
But
did make
all
it.
all the same, these are underlings, and the word is just going to spread like wildfire. It was already spreading, right? That he was having.
Wait, I thought it wasn't his. I thought it was somebody else because they weren't going to be able to make it to his.
Yeah, maybe.
No,
I
he
thought-
was in someone else's war camp, and they galloped back, and then they made it to his camp.
but they couldn't make it into
they couldn't
the
make
castle.
it into the keep to be private, so he had to go with all his soldiers.
Gotcha.
So even so, they all saw him at that moment of weakness,
Yeah.
which what it looks like to anyone on the outside is a man thrashing around, going insane during a high storm. Who passes out when the high storm comes around. That's
Which
pretty
is really interesting. Like, what are high storms really?
Yeah.
That's something we found out in a little bit
Regularity.
well, we found some things out about it, right, in Kaladin's past, which I won't branch over to Kaladin yet, but basically, high storms come from the east, way out in the ocean. They have an origin. They call it the high storm origin. The second thing we know is when they come through, it always leaves what's called creme. We don't really know what creme is. It's like this gunky substance that they use to actually make things. But the high storm leaves it, and that's kind of
It like
interesting.
blows it up and it like seeps into the houses and they have to clean it.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting though because it doesn't like blow it up from the ground that's there. It always brings the creme and then leaves the creme.
Because like that one chapter when Kaladin was a kid, his mom was cleaning the creme off the roof,
Yeah.
and they described it as icicles forming, pretty much. And
Icicles, yeah.
So it's just kind of collecting
semi-solid,
there,
yeah.
and it becomes a rock like.
What, Brett, you had something to say?
I'm sure there's a dirty joke in his head right there.
It is not worthy of this podcast.
But we also found out that it doesn't take effect in the higher grounds where
certain areas, and it seems, I'm wondering the further west
Yeah,
it gets,
like
it
rock?
diminishes as it gets further west. So I'm wondering if the further it gets from the origin, it just gets weaker and weaker. Because Clear Lake, that's one of the things I said. Or is it called the Clear Lake?
They don't have any
They-
storms at
Yeah, he's like, they get like, it seems like a wind blows through. And he's like, you just literally just turn your boat over with your back to the boat and you
Well,
just sit in there in a little nook. and
I'm
you're
only
fine.
going to comment a tiny bit on this little teaser, and that's for you guys. But we actually meet somebody in the very next interludes where they talk about soil and how only in some lands can you have soil because soil would just get destroyed by high storms.
I thought it was funny the point of view in that chapter, how she was like, it's a good thing they don't have high storms here. This would all blow away. It's like, no, that's why they have this.
Which actually kind of brings me up to the point that we kind of find out this entire land is basically the creatures, the plants, the land, everything is evolved. They all have shells, crusts. They're all like crustaceans. Even the chasm beasts are giant shelled creatures. Yeah. Because these
Right.
high storms,
You need to be able
they've
to
basically
protect
been
from it.
evolving. The land, the plants,
even the
vegetation.
plants, like, that's so crazy.
That means these high storms have been going on for
Millennia.
a long time.
Maybe.
Everything
And the
is
Parshendi are kind of the
4,000
same
years?
way, right? Don't they have like really thick skin?
well. These Parshendi have grown plated armor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know that we know. It seems like it would make sense that they evolved that way. But why do the Parshmen not have it then? If the Parshendi do, it's kind of an interesting thing. But anyway, that's to bring us back to King Elhokar. So to take us to the whole circle, we kind of got through Dalinar, not all the way through, but we're getting there. But we got to go back to Elhokar real quick because I know the captain has some comments on this.
Yeah, I think that his character can be easily overlooked, but because his character is in such a high place of absolute power and dominion, I think that he deserves more than just a fleeting glance. I kind of like that Elhokar, even though he's the king and he doesn't have to listen to anybody if he doesn't want to, he seems to give both Sadeas and Dalinar fair chance to give him advice, and he seems to honestly kind of consider what they have to say. But he definitely kind of follows his own agenda and what he thinks is best. And closer to the end of the segment that we're covering, his mom, Navani, comes back to the camp and actually tells Dalinar that she thinks her son is kind of a bad king and an idiot. And I was just wondering do you guys share that same sentiment? Do you think that he's just kind of a easily toppled figurehead, or do you think he stands a chance at maybe retaining some power?
I'd like to jump in real quick on that. I like the comment you bring up there because, and then I'll let everyone else take over. But I think that he does deserve probably more credit than he's given, because at first you might want to write him off as just kind of like a snooty little kid who came into power. Mm-hmm. But you could tell, due to their culture, number one, he does actually listen to advisors and actually considers information, which shows that he's a little bit more than just a spoiled brat. The second thing is there's even a scene where he asks Dalinar, do you wish my dad was still around, and do you think I'm a weak king? And, so you could tell that he's comparing himself to his father a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a critical thing to keep in mind that his father united all the princedoms in a culture where these things do not want to stay united.
And
hated
each other.
That he's so far maintained, keeping them united, but not without help, clearly, for Dalinar and Sadeas are doing a lot of that work. But he does actually notice some of these things. So I think that I wouldn't put him on the gladiator level of the
like Commodus.
Yeah, Commodus. I wouldn't put him on Commodus level.
Yeah.
He's weaker than his father, but at the same time, he kind of knows that and is maybe trying to adapt.
Well, he's also younger.
He is. And I would...
His father had a chance to have much more experience and much more time to get to the man that he was when he died.
I would also say that he is not as intelligent as his sister is, though.
Yeah, I think everybody knows that. Yeah.
So, and he's...
But it almost seems like there aren't many men in this world that are as intelligent as
Let me
their
rephrase
women
that,
counterparts.
I didn't mean educated. Women are clearly going to be more educated in this culture, but I mean intelligent. Like, you could tell Dalinar is intelligent, even though he's not educated.
Yeah.
He thinks through things very thoroughly. Adolin thinks through things very thoroughly, even though he has that hot-blooded gene
Temper,
going.
yeah,
he does.
His brother.
I don't know that he thinks things very thoroughly. I can't agree with you on that. I feel like he's more hot-headed than
When you saw him running the camps, doing things, he
He didn't understand the reason why his father was making him do those things.
Well, I mean, that partially I think comes from a belief that you don't want to think that your father's going to, abdicate and give you, he has a lot of respect.
I
for
think
his
he was trying to comprehend why he was doing those things, but he just wasn't seeing his father's viewpoint.
I think so.
Yeah,
but
which I would say.
Anyway, that's not where I want to take it. So I didn't mean to, start.
I will say this though. Back to Elhokar really quick.
Yeah, back to Elhokar.
I think that there's one thing that actually kind of bothered me about Dalinar a little bit. Like, yes, they need to be logical about the threats on his life and stuff like that, but I think it's also really important to understand where Elhokar is coming from. Like, he's a king in the position of, he grew up with his father, probably seeing him as one of the strongest people in the world. He has Shardplate and a Shardblade. He united all these kingdoms. He's about as great of a man as you could probably see when people are prone to feel that way about their father already, but he had the actions to back it up. So he's looking at this person as almost like a godlike figure, and then he's assassinated. So I think Elhokar has proven that he's not a coward. He's willing to put himself in danger. He's willing to go for the fight. He's willing to go out there and be the king that his dad was. But if somebody could take down just darkly in an unlit room with a blade without you noticing, quietly as an assassin, probably the greatest man he's ever known, and he doesn't feel like he lives up to his father, then obviously he's going to be paranoid. And I think he has times of clarity where he's thinking everything through and he's being intelligent and he's being the leader. But then I think it's kind of starting to seep into his mind like a sickness. And I think it's possible that he could de-evolve more into the paranoia. So I think that the paranoia is almost like a virus that's taking over him. It's not really him. It's just him not being able to think that he could avoid something that his father couldn't.
Well, I think that's kind of a cool point, but I kind of go something similar. But when I read this, I'm sitting there and I keep thinking like he has this enormous weight of what his father was and trying to live up to that, and that knowledge that his father was killed. Was an assassin, so someone really powerful wanted to remove his father. And I think part of my personal kind of viewpoint, I think that the paranoia is a development of a need to be important, because they've been there on the Shattered Plains for years, 7 years now.
6 years.
Right.
6 or 7 years, and they used to get these raids, and it's now turning into just this sport. And I'm wondering if he's slowly starting to feel like I'm running out of what's keeping everyone together, and I'm running out of what's like holding the kingdom together. People are starting to forget my father and forget this. And I think that paranoia is almost a development to say like everybody look at me. Like, first I need attention a little bit, but also like my father was this great man. He got killed, and if you don't like protect me and pay attention to me, I'm gonna die too, and it's gonna be this terrible thing. So everyone, it's almost like people aren't acknowledging that he's this important king. And then all of a sudden, if there's this threat to him, like, oh, they're assassins. Well, if there's assassins, that means he's important. And there's someone trying to kill him. He's as important as his father. And I'm wondering if this is like a self-defense mechanism where he's like, everything could potentially come crumbling down. I'm not as great as my father. And I've got this constant fear that I won't be held to that same level.
So that's a great point, Josh. So I think we've got a lot of interesting characters now on this side. Yeah. Now I know we're gonna lose the Hitman soon.
Yeah, right
so
now I gotta go.
I want before we go, I know we're gonna lose the Hitman. Today.
I just want to say one thing.
Sure. Yeah,
before
I
I go
want to get a
then.
Hitman in on this.
Because Beth reminded me about this, and I wanted to bring it up. That when the King Galavar was killed, what happened to his Shardblade and Shardblade? It was left there. Why didn't his son inherit it? Because he got his Shardblade and Blade from Dalinar on the battlefield. So where did that go?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
That is a good question. Actually, that's something I didn't even think about, because I was thinking that he did inherit it.
Yeah.
But it was announced that Dalinar gave his first win of the Shardplate and Shardblade on the plains.
I thought that said that he gave the first set to Galavar, and Galavar assigned that Shardplate and Blade to a soldier, to a warrior.
Did he? I don't
No,
know.
they only started
Dalinar
fighting.
assigned it to the soldier he thought was most worthy.
No. He said Dalinar, instead of assigning it to the soldier that he thought was most worthy, he gave it to Galavar, who already had it, and then therefore assigned it to somebody that he wanted. It was another planet
that
or a
could
hybrid.
be.
I'm
That could
almost
be.
positive
But-
that's what it was.
I don't think,
I think he
even
has
Dalinar would give up a Shardblade if the king already had one.
But I think it was more of Dalinar was trying to show his subservience to the king. Because
And
now
this
you
is
have
all
this
for
new
the king.
king.
Yeah,
You have this new king here, and Dalinar's trying to show you that I'll even give my Shardplate and Blade the most thing. That's something we'll look into,
Yeah,
man.
I'll
That's a
look.
great point.
'Cause I
That's a
thought,
badass
the king
point that you
didn't
just
have
made.
one.
But
I could be wrong.
I'm almost. I'm not positive, but we'll go back and look at this. Hitman brings up a great point. These are little details. Sanderson's such a beast. These little details. So that's a great point, Ben. We'll look into this and we'll revisit it next week when you're back. We'll confirm this. I think though that the King Elhokar does have. Don't quote me because Hitman may have a great point, but I think that he gave that, and then Dalinar was a little bit like, I could have given that to one of my guys, this soldier right here, who's
My son.
Well, eventually, right? He wants to give. He wants to give
he wants to.
Renarin a blood part.
But with that last
I will say this,
quote,
Jeff,
I gotta
that
go.
from what you were saying, there definitely is precedence for that. Of Dalinar
Sleep well,
offering
Hitman.
Shardblades to people to form allegiance.
Everybody on the radio, we got to cheers while the Hitman leaves us a little early today. So he'll be back lit literature next week, and we'll get an earlier start. So
Later, Ben.
all right. So one man down, lost him in the cornfield. I knew it.
Oh no.
Let's not bring that up again.
Just joking. So Brett, you were saying.
I was just saying that for what you were saying, there's how he might have used it as a way to like. What were you saying? Like Dalinar might have used it as a way to like show his allegiance or something.
So it was
Yeah.
really important because the king had just died. The king that was
Right.
the one guy who united them all, and you got all these hot-blooded, high-headed high princes who were kings just a bit ago. Yeah. Just like a little bit ago. So
Yeah.
I think it was probably a great way for while they're all in this revenge pact basically to say this is the king. Therefore,
Yeah.
I could even give him something so important as shard plate. It's another thing to say that Dalinar's clearly won multiple shard blades and shard plates. He has his eldest son has his own set, but I think later on we figure out where that came from, and it wasn't necessarily a victory. I think it was actually from Adolin's mother's side. That'll be confirmed later on, I think, if it didn't get confirmed already, but I remember that being the case.
Okay.
Of course, that's another thing we need to talk about real quick.
Yeah.
Dalinar has no memory of his wife.
Which is crazy.
But it seems no one knows about that.
No,
He's-
but they
keeps
do.
it-
They don't talk about it.
Well,
I
I
Adol even says, I just try not to think of my mom. Literally.
Something happened there.
Definitely.
And he
if
had to have
anybody
gotten his
brings it
memories
up,
erased.
It just like slips away
It
from his
slips
memory
away
right
from his
away.
memory. It's
It
clearly
kind of made
magic.
me think like if he meets
So-
anybody else, if he meets anybody else with that same name, will he like never be able to learn their name?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because I think like that he went to the old magic, and it seems to be a pilgrimage that a lot of people kind of in this time make. But being able to like, and he had to sacrifice this for some boon, and you don't know quite what it is.
So crazy.
So he's
fascinated by
sacrificed
it.
something. Yeah, it's clearly going to play a role into this whole magic system that we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
So
So
he was
now-
part of the story, definitely.
And he even says he was a fool and he regrets it, but he gained something,
Yeah.
a boon, but we don't know what it was.
Maybe he was just really distraught by the death of his wife because she was the woman that he married, and I'm assuming she's the one woman that helped him get over the queen. And he was like
Right.
desperately in love with her, so he probably was distraught, and
But
he had all her memories
I feel that
erased.
he described it as that he didn't know what he was going to lose for a different boon. It sounds like the way you're describing
Yeah, it sounds
would
like
be
that was the
that's
curse
boon.
is what he got.
The
'cause
curse is losing
that he can't remember. her.
So somehow I missed this concept of boons. What the hell is that?
This almost sounds like a little storyline from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where he gains something in
Yeah.
exchange for forgetting something.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, right?
It is very interesting.
Anyway, just a comment. We don't know
But
much
what's the
about
boon? Really
it.
quick.
We don't know. We don't know.
so
what the boon
they
is.
so
No, what is a boon?
Oh, it's a reward. It's like anything that's
I missed that somehow.
so they go for this. They go for something, request something, and then they always with that request or their boon, the reward or not necessarily reward even. It's like a gift, but with that
Oh,
they
you
get a
be-
curse.
it's like a
I
price.
was thinking boon was some like special vocabulary in the book, but you're talking about an actual English
yeah,
language.
All right,
On
guys.
this
today-
episode of Lit Literature,
on this episode of
Brett learns new vocabulary.
We learned that it's written in English.
Word of the day, folks. Boon. All right, guys. So
Okay, but we totally lost, we totally sidetracked from talking about the king, which
Yeah.
I feel like Josh talked about the whole paranoia thing and how he's doing it to kind of make himself feel important. But I agree with his mother that I think that he's kind of a weak king, because even though he does have advisors that he listens to, I feel like he's just like a contradiction. Like he just is a contradiction in my eyes. He's like paranoid that all these people are trying to kill him, but then he's like, oh, I need to prove that I'm not scared. But it's like, if you really were scared that these things that killed your father are going to kill you, then you'd have a little bit more of intelligence. It's like, instead of wasting time trying to go to the hunt, why don't you learn how to fight better or do something?
but-
It just seems like he really doesn't know what to do.
Dalinar said about that.
what it?
That's not. Never mind. It must not be yet.
I think you can't. Yeah, I think you gotta hold off on that. But I think either way, he's an interesting character that we're gonna have to learn a little bit more about. What I just really want to know is, he says he sees things.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Is it crazy? I don't know. I mean,
No,
there's a lot
I
of
mean, I
crazy
wonder
shit
what it
going
is.
on.
We don't know. We don't get a chance to really hear about it because everybody just blows it off as paranoia.
Yeah, because he seems like he's crazy.
Kind of like Dalinar.
Yeah.
Kind of like Dalinar. That's the point I was going to make,
That's
right?
a good point.
So
if
the
we're going to
king
believe
says-
Dalinar, why would we not believe Elhokar?
And then everyone's like, even Adolin is like, your visions are just you getting old and you have PTSD. That's basically what he says to his dad. He's like, you have issues. Like, that's what he said. Nobody believes
Yeah.
you. And he's like, well, I believe my visions. But then the king's over here like, I see things in the shadows.
Adolin really sums up the perfect viewpoint of the average Alethi lordling. Like, you know, this war is an opportunity for those types of people, for that class. They can gain a lot of wealth and power. They can gain a lot of prestige. Fame, yep. And kind of the things that Dalinar and Elhokar might potentially be hiding with their visions, that's just not something that they understand. It goes against their core religion as well, I believe.
Yeah.
It flat out is.
Yeah.
Which Adolin learns when he talks to that one
the
priest.
cleric or the priest at the...
Important to note, the priests are basically property now. Even the priest that was talking to Shallan back at the other spot with Yezna. But it's like...
That charming fella.
They basically, at one point, the charming fella who brings jam.
Yeah.
But the priests, basically, they're property. And the reason they're property and they can't do anything is because at one point they try to take over. They try to take over the world based on prophecies.
Yeah.
Quote prophecies. And the question is was that real or not? All you know is that the church almost overthrew the entire state,
And now all priestdom or the religion is like considered property. There are strict rules that it's almost taboo to do anything prophetic. So even games of chance where you're guessing on like a die throw are right on that kind of edge where it's a little bit taboo when you're throwing to be like, I think it's going to be this.
Thank you, Sanderson, for that tidbit, because he was thinking about how long-term things impact culture.
Exactly.
Prophetic. So you don't gamble on what's going to come up. You gamble on other things. Other things. It doesn't matter what comes up. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
You're not going to prophesize or guess that. You don't do that.
Yeah.
So
because then if all of a
awesome.
sudden you hit like 5 lucky hits in a row and people are like, are you guessing this? And you're like, no, the dice is chance. I'm just like happen to hit this. So it's a fine line that they walk with certain things, and I love that he intertwines that into the culture and how something as simple as like back in the past the church used prophecy to try to take over like state, and then how would the repercussions of that kind of move through time to this like it's taboo to do this, and then when it's taboo, how does that affect other parts of life, gambling, and like even the people who do not prophesize, but try and use science to guess when the Highstorms are going to come. That's a bit of like some people shun those people because they're like, it's too close to prophecy. They are too close to trying to guess the future, which is taboo, but it's something that they need. So in this case, they let it through. It's really interesting.
But then what about the clerics and the fact that they help people find their calling?
That's good. I mean, I don't think that's prophecy, but I think it's just how they view their job.
But not necessarily, because it's like that's what they use to kind of decide what they want or what their job should be.
Yeah, I guess historically they decided that their religion had enough value that they decided to keep it around in some form or another.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like their version of church has much power at all, really. I think the closest they come to that is helping people achieve their callings.
But the calling is like a deeply like cultural thing where it's your meaning in life. Like even like life is kind of this whole staging ground for what really matters, which is the battle in the aftermath with the heralds to take back the hall or whatever. Yeah. So this all is just prep work for that. So I think when they talk about like calling, like that's not trying to say we're prophetic or what you're going to do in the future, but like we're going to train you now so you can be more useful in the future.
Question about that.
Yes, go for it.
If they felt like the heralds betrayed them or left them, why do they feel
don't.
like
They don't.
I don't think it's the
They think they're
radiance
heroes.
that they
The
believe.
yes.
So the whole thing that the heralds is they remember even at the end of the prelude they said maybe they'll even think we did win, and then they'll be like, well, maybe this is it. Maybe we really did win. But I don't think they ever say the heralds betrayed them.
It's like the statues of the heralds are there. They're all godlike figures. The heralds are still there, but the radiance after the heralds left, the radiance quote betrayed
Abandoned betrayed
their
the
calling.
people.
But maybe that had something to do with the fact that the heralds actually abandoned it, and the radiance were
Are taking the fall for it now.
Yeah.
Because this is
so
obviously
weird.
also in the
So,
future.
because in the religion, certainly the heralds are still prophetic figures that won the battle. They even said that in one of Shallan's earlier chapters, right? They were, I forget how they
But
worded
that's
it. But
that's a good point too. Is we don't know exactly what the time difference is between the heralds and the radiance because I
Yeah.
thought I remember the radiance even being not sure of what the heralds could do.
Right.
So that could be thousands of years difference. So the heralds are still kind of viewed as these are the godly way back, and then the radiance are the ones that like in the past betrayed us, and they're these people that were at fault for kind of leaving us and stuff.
This is really cool. So what I want to have us do is we're actually gonna close out this episode on this, and we're gonna start up shortly and talk Kaladin. But before we go, I just want to capture any closing comments on Dalinar, Adolin, any of this. So this part 2, we really get split in these two sections, right? We're in high society following Dalinar and his crew, and then we're following Kaladin. We haven't talked anything of Kaladin yet.
No,
but
we haven't.
we're going to talk that next episode. But is there any comments you guys got on Dalinar? I mean,
I would say the only thing that I would just like to comment on before we call it a day is I thought the pen thing was really
oh yeah,
Communication.
yeah,
really cool.
What do they call
span
it?
read.
And I thought we learned a lot of interesting
Span read.
information
That's
about
big span.
how there's information that shows that really nobody alive today knows what a Voidbringer looks like, and that a chasm fiend is their like kind of injection for that. It's like their current representation, but they really don't know what the Voidbringers were. They're just assuming that they were that bad. And I thought that was really
That is cool. It's important to note, like, before the end of this part, Dalinar's deciding whether he should abdicate or not. And he decides in this section he's going to abdicate.
he had decided?
he's going to.
And he had a few really interesting questions that he kind of proposed to Adolin. Like, why does nobody with Shardplate in the past, why do you never hear of this being used as a tool
for the people that like labor.
for the people that labor?
Yeah.
And then he went and dug a ditch that these guys probably would have taken months to do. He did it in like a half an hour.
Yeah.
I think
like-
it was more than
yeah.
a half hour.
An hour or whatever he was thinking. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
he just
yeah.
literally went in there and everyone's just staring at him and he's just like, I gotta work. I just want to work. He's got the shard plate. He's basically
He also
in a
brings
med.
up a really good point that these gemstones or hearts, whatever they are, they're something that they keep on farming. That they're gonna be, it's gonna become something that's commonplace,
It's
and then
part of
what's
their
gonna
economy.
take, and
Yeah.
then what's gonna take place over that, and what's gonna happen when that is no longer.
So basically,
value.
hey, I got this area out in the Shattered Plains where I can print money. Literally, I'm gonna print money.
Yeah.
It's like, what's gonna happen to the economy
And
in
does
the
that
long run?
devalue the currency
Yeah,
after you get
most
more and more?
certainly does.
And what happens when all of a sudden maybe you
It's no longer
overhunt
common. Yeah.
that and they stop showing up, or you
shit.
start to get thinner and thinner
Yeah,
population
he's
of
thinking
these.
about things that I don't think are very Alethi like.
Oh yeah, and if you think in the long run, like that could be catastrophic for
Absolutely.
an entire culture that
Especially for the higher ups.
their money is just being like all won from these chasm feeds, and then all of a sudden they go to extinction. They get hunted to extinction, and they can't. They're going to these hills to pupate, which is obviously so they can breed.
Yeah.
And if that's all of a sudden getting cut off every single time, how many years before there's no children being grown
Yeah,
up to
that's a good
do
point.
this anymore?
So the other things that we should close out on real quick is obviously Yesna's research. She's clearly looking into some shit in relation
Yeah.
to this whole
Hashtag love her.
yeah. So she's looking into some crazy stuff, man. She's looking at. She asks, how was the first meeting really? The Parshendi learned the language in 3 days. They initially asked for maps. What about chasm fiends? What about Voidbringers. Did they ever mention the Voidbringer? There's all this miscommunication throughout these years. You could tell this history is very blurred,
and it's like all these books that they're reading it's like, oh, this was a second-hand rendition of this person's work, so you can't even totally trust that this is what that person actually said.
They may not have had it. So there's a drawing of a chasm fiend, and she's like, is this what a chasm fiend looks like? Because is this what a void? This is noted as a voidbringer, but it looks similar to a chasm fiend.
Yeah, she says that they defined it as a voidbringer in her book, but they recognize it as a chasm.
So it's cool that she's so smart. She's thinking about like, this is probably twisted.
Yeah, it's really cool. She brings up the
time.
fact that she's looking for information that is filtered pretty much, and she's like getting rid of all of the biased historians and trying to get to the core of actual real facts.
And it's funny because a lot of it she's even starting to resort back to like children's book.
Yes. Even Dalinar has a hard time understanding like what is going to be different about those books from the ones that you've read already. Like, well, those books were based on the winners. You know, like who writes their history?
The people who win.
Absolutely, the people who win the wars.
So I think we'll leave it at that for now. And we're gonna close this episode out on Dalinar, and then we'll start up in a bit and talk about some Kaladin. But until then, again, this is Lit Literature, and we are less lit than last week, but still lit. and we talked Dalinar today. We'll be talking part 2 Kaladin
shortly.
And look us up.
Feeling every other week is going to be more lit.
Every other week will be more lit. Especially when we double up.
Yeah.
Or
some of these wagers.
2 episodes in a day.
Some of these wagers actually,
when they
believe it or not,
do.
we've got actually of some of the wagers that we have. Some of them are coming to a close by the end of the book. So we're gonna have some push-ups and some shots going in the next few weeks. So anyway, folks, again, this is Lit Literature. We're talking The Way of Kings of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, and we are talking with the Shoutouts. This is us. We've got Brett the director, Josh the Cherry.
Brett the director. Check me out at www.brettwilliamsfilm.com or on Twitter at @bwilliamsfilm.
That is correct. And Josh Cherry. Got anything to say?
Nope. Nothing cool. No Twitter.
We've got Captain Andros.
Check
over
me out
here.
in the belly of a chasm fiend.
Nice.
Eam the Dream.
# late today.
He was late. And unfortunately, Ben the Hitman had to go on an assassination run, so he had to leave us a little bit early. I hate it when he has to kill somebody.
I was wondering why he was wearing all white.
We don't have film today either, so we can't even prove this, but it's true. It's very true. He was wearing all white. And then hosted by the Demon, JP. Anyway, have a good one, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
See you next week.